All right, I think we'll go ahead and get started. So first off, I just want to thank all of you for coming today to this NASCA sponsored food and sustainable living event. We're all super excited to have you guys here. Just real quick, I do ask that you guys keep your mics muted during this presentation, and we will have an opportunity for you at the end to ask any questions. But as this presentation goes on, you are more than welcome to put your questions in the chat box, and then I will read them off to the presenters at the very end. And if they're directed towards a specific group, just make sure you kind of say who's it directed to. And then for all of you who are new here to a NASCA event, just a little bit about us. We're a local grassroots organization. It's a people-powered movement in Northern Arizona. We seek to bring people together to push for strong climate action in our communities, and we're working to build a grassroots movement to educate and empower all people to take action and to fight climate change. So I'll just do a quick introduction of myself. My name is Raina Butler, and I am an intern with NASCA, and I'm working on the Food, Land Use, and Health Climate Action Team. And just the purpose of this team is to create better food cultures and communities, emphasize the interconnectedness between food, health, community, and sustainability, and also to plan projects about reducing climate change effects and to raise awareness about that. So if any of this excites you or interests you, Sydney, she's going to be monitoring the chat, figuring out all the questions and whatnot. She'll drop the link in the chat for this climate action team that will just list of our upcoming events and how you can get involved. All right, so moving on to the main event. The purpose of this food and sustainable living panel is to engage and educate the local community about the strong connection between food, sustainability, and kind of learn about what's being done within our local community and your home that's helping fight the climate change. Hopefully one of the organizations tonight interests you and you'll want to get involved with them and kind of learn more about them. And let me just introduce them real quick. So today we have representatives from Roots Microfarm, and that's going to, Summer White will be talking about them. And then we'll have Cara Corbin with Corbin Composting, and Caleb Eckert and Heather with Refugia Gardens. And they'll just be talking about who they are, what they do, and the importance of the sustainable food practices and eating and whatnot. All right, so first up, I believe we have Summer White with Roots Microfarm.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. It's great to be speaking with you tonight. And yeah, just something that's really dear to me is food systems work. And I'm speaking from experience as a grower here in Flagstaff. So just a little bit about me and how I got started involved with Roots. I moved to Flagstaff about 6 years ago and completed my undergrad at NAU, studying environmental studies, and I became pretty interested in the agricultural system at large, just realizing how interconnected our food systems and the global food industrial complex is related to climate change. And so really just wanting to get a better understanding of what alternatives do we have to this system that we're currently dealing with at large, and completed my capstone with a local farm in town, Roots Microfarm. So I started as an intern my senior year, and then straight out of completing my degree, essentially became an employee and then began managing the farm. So 2020 was my first year managing with my now co-owner, Michael Malcolm, who's not here today, but we kind of were thrown into this crazy landscape of growing food in Flagstaff during the pandemic. And, you know, it was hard and quite the whirlwind, but we made it through and we learned so much. You know, growing in Flagstaff is not an easy feat, and just let alone, and then, you know, adding on being a novice grower when you look at folks that have been farming for years and years, and then bringing a pandemic into the mix. So it's been just quite an eye-opening experience growing this past couple years, and really getting just a broad scope of what interacting with the food system at a local scale means. So I just would love to show some photos of the farm with you all, just for those of you that have never been or have never heard of us. So let me just share my screen really quickly here. Bear with me. All right, hopefully you all are able to see this. Someone shout at me if you can't see my screen, but otherwise I'll assume we can see it all right.
It's not showing up on my end.
No? Okay. Give me 1 second here.
It's totally fine.
Can you just see my face still?
Yeah, it's just your face right now.
Okay. Let's see. How about now? Okay.
Good.
Thank you all for your patience. So this is just a front view of the farm for those of you who haven't seen it. We are on a quarter acre lot in downtown Flagstaff. So mainly growing greens, root vegetables, flowers, herbs. And the main thing that we grow are microgreens, which are really nutrient dense, easy to grow, quick to grow. They are essentially the small baby version of any plant. So mainly you do leafy greens, we do broccoli, and you can do sunflower shoots and radish sprouts, things of that nature. And they're really popular because of their nutrient density. So, and it fits really well with our setup being on such a small piece of land. So just moving forward here, you can see just a few photos of the farm. We've got some root vegetables, flowers. This is inside of our hoop house. So we're dealing with a pretty small space. Some photos of some microgreens here. And, as I've kind of went into my experience as a farmer, it's been, sorry, I'm trying to exit out of here now. I'm struggling how to exit this screen sharing.
Summer, you might hit escape a couple times, and on one of your toolbars there might be a button that says stop share.
Okay. Sorry, everyone. Are we good? Okay, apologies there. So essentially, I'm a new grower, and it's been quite the journey farming in Flagstaff. And, just recently we're very focused on regenerative practices. So that means, using organic practices when we're growing, not utilizing pesticides or herbicides, anything of that nature, keeping it small scale, utilizing compost to really enrich the soil. That's, the basis of everything that we grow. If we want to provide nourishing food, the soil needs to be healthy. And, that really comes from helping to promote a more closed system. And when I say that, that means, the waste that we produce growing food or eating food is able to be composted, broken down, reincorporated into the soil, and so forth. So that's a big focus of ours. Biointensive farming, essentially meaning that we're utilizing our small space as the best can. So, maximizing the area with plantings that generally don't require as much time, plants that can mature in 30 days or mainly between 30 and 60 days is, the sweet spot for growing in our space. So, there are some challenges being in a smaller area. When you think of farms, you think of acres and acres. But what comes with, I think, farming in Flagstaff and just farming in general, and in this landscape of understanding our current system doesn't suit us. I just want to talk a little bit about as growers and as folks that are invested in our food system, thinking about food access. And that's something that is really, sometimes difficult at a small scale. And when we think about climate change, I think it's important that we think about equity and how climate change is going to affect the way that we're growing, but it's also going to be affecting the way that folks are accessing food. So, I'm a new owner of Roots Microfarm, and we're really trying to find where we fit in, growing food for the community, but also helping folks to access food. So I think that's a journey. For most growers here in Flagstaff that I know, and a lot of other people exploring regenerative and agriculture and alternatives. So I think speaking to what we can kind of do as communities, supporting this bigger picture of an alternative way of thinking about food is creating a relationship with the entire food system as we know. And when I say food system, I mean, the people that are growing the food, how we're distributing the food, how food is being marketed, how it's being consumed, and then how it's being reused or reincorporated back into the soil and things of that nature. So I really think it does come down to just having a stronger connection with our food, and that can really come from simply sharing a recipe with someone you care about, or joining a community garden, or sharing skills and knowledge, and just kind of building that basis for actually having a close relationship with food that I think has really been lost with the system that we're most familiar with. So it's a small step that I think can propel us into making lasting and structural change. And I just wanted to talk about that a little bit because I know myself as a grower, a new grower in this world, I'm trying to figure out that balancing act a little bit. And I think it's important that we think about it. And as much as I know growing food is a challenge in itself, there's much more to be done and to learn about as well. So if you all have any questions about what we're doing at Roots and how you can connect with us more, I'm happy to answer any of those questions. I feel like I went over my time a little bit here, but thanks so much.
No, you're totally fine. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. Really wonderful work being done over there. We appreciate you, and I know the planet does. Thank you. Um, all right, so next, I believe it is Cara with Corbin Composting up next.
Okay, great. Let me go ahead and share my screen. And you guys, Jenna and Heather and Caleb and Sydney, you guys give me like a 5-minute or like a wrap it up, or you know what I mean? Just feel free to keep me on track. Okay. Let's see. Can you guys see that? Yeah? Okay. I'll introduce myself. My name's Cara Corbin. I'm the owner of Corbin Compost. We have been doing residential compost collection here in Flagstaff since 2018. I was passed the baton from a group that was called Roots Composting that no longer wanted to do residential compost collection, and I really did want to. So they sort of passed some of their knowledge and information and resources onto me, and then I've taken it and run since then. So let's kind of dig into it a little bit. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about how to compost. I just wanted to share this one slide. So in case anyone wasn't familiar, this is some of the information that we share with our residential compost clients. So what we're really looking for are their kitchen food scraps, primarily fresh fruits and vegetables. Some bread is okay, things of that nature, but no fat, no meat, no oil, grease, pet waste, plastic, that's become a problem. We do even get down to the level of produce stickers. We're trying to encourage folks to take off their plastic produce twist ties and their produce stickers, because that's something that we have to deal with on the back end, because we do take the compost and make big compost piles, let those cook down, then we screen that compost and then sell it after it's had time to break down. So anything that shouldn't be in there is screened out, and that does take work. So the cleaner compost we can get from people on the front end, the easier it is to turn it around on the back end. But it's just something that we're learning about as we go. So this is just kind of like, this is what we're talking about, but we're not going to talk primarily about composting. Here's an image of what we take in. So we do 5-gallon buckets, and we pick them up from our clients 2 times per month. And this is an example of what might be inside. So some leftovers, some carrot tops, some onion skins, things of that nature. And then this is what it turns into after it goes through our process. So it's really important to take that food out of the waste stream and turn it into a viable product. I'm sure with this audience that you guys already know a lot about the big problem that food waste is. I mean, if you start digging into the statistics, it's astounding what is thrown in the trash can that can still be used, could be eaten, could be passed along to another group. But instead, a lot of that food goes into the trash can. And that's a problem because not only does it take so many miles, as you can see the green statistic here, the food, to get the food to the people, if you're not buying from Summer and from Caleb and Heather, if you're not buying locally here in Flagstaff, we're buying, you know, apples from New Zealand and peppers from South America. And the number of food miles that these foods are traveling to get to us in the first place is one thing. But then once we're done with that food, then we're throwing it in the trash can, and then it has to be transported to the dump here, which is another use of fossil fuels. And then when it's at the dump, it, instead of being turned into a viable, healthy, good product, it ferments and turns into greenhouse gases. So it's like 2 problems that can be turned into one great solution. So I'm not going to read everything to you guys because you can see it, but I can share this with you later if there's anything that strikes your fancy, and we can always talk more about this other stuff later. But I want to get a little bit into some of the breakdown of it. Just the sheer amount of viable products that are taken to the dump. And instead of turning into a healthy return to the soil, it just gets wasted. And it's such a tragedy. So this is from a great organization called the Institute for Local Self-Reliance. If you haven't looked at their resources, they have some really amazing information. You can go to their website and learn more from them. But they have these great graphics that really break it down. So you can see, like in a typical trash bag, all of the stuff that's in there that could be put to a good purpose instead. Yeah, just not only the greenhouse gases that are created when food is taken to the landfill and turned into methane, but also the waste of water, the waste of land space. It's just, it's a tragedy. So I think it's really important to raise awareness about the environmental impacts, because I know a lot of people feel guilty about this and want to be a part of the solution, but it's like, if you drive to work, it's really hard to say you're going to stop driving your car. Or if you fly to go see family at some point, to take a pledge to not fly anymore. I understand that I'm a parent, so I have transportation needs that I have to do, but food waste is to me a little bit different, because you might not be able to stop driving to work, but you definitely can, instead of throwing your banana peel in the trash can, compost it. So if you have a backyard space, you can create a compost pile. And if you don't, there's residential collection services. And if you can't pay for that, the community gardens here in Flagstaff have compost. There's composted in AU. There's a free compost outside of the CSA store on Cottage Avenue. There are a lot of great alternatives. So if I can be an advocate on any one issue, it's please stop throwing your food in the trash can. Don't let it turn into methane. It's a really bad greenhouse gas. And when food is taken out of the trash can, it can turn into compost, which is a wonderful product. So I think that everybody has heard about greenhouse gases, and a lot of us know about carbon dioxide, but methane is even worse of a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. And methane is what is created when food festers and rots at the landfill. Methane can stick around for 20 times longer than carbon dioxide does. So the best thing that we can do greenhouse gas emissions wise is not create it in the first place. Can we get rid of landfills altogether? Probably not. But if all of us did not throw our food in the trash can to be sent to the landfill, that would lengthen the life of the landfill by that much more. So I'm a big advocate for just little small changes that each of us can do. And this is like a primary one. Just no more coffee grounds and banana peels in the trash can. Just compost that good stuff. So I just want to drill down a little bit into what we do. Like I said, we pick up 2 times per month. Each of those, we do about 300 pounds. That's an average, it changes. So for example, after Halloween, we pick up pumpkins, and that will be a really heavy day for us. Some days are really light days. It just kind of varies. We take an average each day. We've just started doing that. So I just want to share some of the numbers that have come from that. So based on our average per day, if you multiply that out over the year, we are diverting more than 7,000 pounds of food from the landfill. And I'm sure the climate activists folks in the group know that there are greenhouse gas emission calculators online that you can go into, and you can do it individually for yourself, or there's a business calculation as well. So if you multiply the number of pounds of food per year that we're saving from the landfill, is equaling more than 3 metric tons per year of greenhouse gas emissions avoided. One small technical beef I have with those is they kind of lump greenhouse gas emissions into one thing, whereas CO2 and methane are really not the same. They don't act the same in the environment. They don't stick around for the same amount of time. but a lot of those calculators just kind of lump it all together. So we just have to kind of go with that for now, but just to make that distinction between methane and carbon dioxide. Methane is worse for our purposes of greenhouse gas problems. So not only is that going to the landfill and festering, at the same time, we are creating hundreds of pounds of nutrient-rich soil that we then sell at the farmer's market and give back to our customers. And you probably know, but if you don't, I'll continue to sing the praises of compost because it does so much. It really provides nutrients for the new plants that you would want to grow. It improves soil texture, which in a place like Northern Arizona with the very thin soils that we have, it's really, really important. And even as drought becomes more of an issue in our area, compost increases the moisture retention ability of the soil. So it'll break down clay, it'll improve sand type soil, like any soil that you have, compost is good for it. It helps the plants, it helps the soil structure, neutralizes toxins. I could go on, but I won't because I only have a little bit of time here. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for having me. Obviously, this is something that I'm really passionate about, and I'm happy to talk compost with anyone, anytime. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them after the next presentation, or feel free to reach out to me directly. Whatever I can do, I'm here to sing the praises of compost. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Cara. That was really informative and educational. Really appreciate that. I know I learned a few things, and I will definitely be in contact with you asking about a few things. So thank you.
I hope so. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. All right. Going to the last one, we have Caleb and Heather from Refugia Gardens.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, I'm Caleb, and this is Heather.
Hi.
And we're with Refugia Gardens. We're two of the three kind of cooperative farmers with Refugia Gardens, which is a small scale, kind of bio-intensive, regenerative permaculture practicing farm on the eastern slope of the peaks. So we're out in the Timberline neighborhood, and we've been around since 2018, I want to say. So we're relatively also new, but we are, we're the growing community in Flagstaff is not only small, but is also incredibly connected. So we've learned so much from other local farmers, including Summer and Michael over at Roots Microfarm, so we. I guess a little bit about us. So we started in 2018, and our name Refugia comes from the term it's an ecosystem science term that basically describes places of refuge that are places of refuge for a particular species or a group of species that provide habitat for that species amid immense environmental change. So it actually is a term that comes up a lot in climate change research in relation to ecosystems and biodiversity, in thinking about how species are going to be able to survive in little niches, in habitats, on the land or on mountains or what have you, in order to survive what the unprecedented things that we are facing in the future as well as in the present. So we think about that both in an ecosystem sense, amid the non-human, but also thinking about we take that concept of refuge and we bring that into our work as farmers in creating ecosystems and habitats, but also in thinking about what our work is in the wider community of humans, and in creating refuge and figuring out ways to, ford these troubled waters that we are in and going to be facing. So I guess we could pull up our...
Yeah, we also have some photos.
Yeah.
So
hopefully this will be...
pardon our technical difficulties.
I think you just...
Oh.
Yeah. Yep.
While we find the thing. Oh, where's the
I think it's the
presentation?
view.
Oh, there it is.
There it is.
Okay,
Beautiful.
I've done this.
So there's our
before.
logo. Yeah, do you want to talk about
Yeah,
that?
so we currently have about, what is it now? Just under half an acre, a third of an acre?
About a third of
About
an
a third
acre.
of an
yeah.
acre under production and under cultivation. We have now 2 hoop houses. This picture is a bit out of date as we now have a huge 100-foot Gothic tunnel spanning basically the entire length in front of whatever you're seeing right now. And we've really found that, you know, as hard as it is to try and do this regenerative sustainable farming thing as plastic free as possible, the climate in and around this sky island of Flagstaff really benefits from season extension and that kind of stability that those more controlled climates offer. So it is until they find out a way to create non-plastic season extension, somebody let me know when that happens, because that would be great to not use as much plastic as we unfortunately have to right now. So our crops, we grow a combination of, you know, your general market crops, you know, lettuce and arugula and other such greens and tomatoes and things like that. But we're really trying to highlight and grow varieties that are more regionally adapted to our area. So shorter season, more cold hardy, more drought hardy varieties of foods that are either native or naturalized to the area or are incredibly suited to this area to kind of expand the idea of, well, what does eating locally look like? What does eating locally in terms of what grows here look like? And to that end, we also, for our CSA members and the lucky farmers market goers, when we have extra, we do go wildcrafting on occasion. And so we will find foods that are endemic to this area and be able to bring them to the table. We had a fun bout with some banana yucca last season, and it was a lot of fun experimenting how to cook those with our CSA members. It turns out they make a delicious yucca and apple pie. It was amazing.
Yeah, so there's just a couple of photos of some of the, I guess, indicators, I guess, of some of the ecosystem work we do. So we have partnered also with the Flagstaff Kestrel project to have a Kestrel box in the upper right or upper left corner to host kestrels in the area as their habitat is being kind of encroached upon, or has been historically and continues to be, through kind of land use changes, which are also very deeply linked to the climate crisis. So, as land is developed into homes, or as it is, developed into farmland for kind of industrial agriculture, some of that habitat is basically taken away from particular keystone species in an area. And consequently, that land use change has a huge impact on carbon emissions. So in places where there could be a carbon sink, like in a forest or a rainforest, for example, those land use changes can be really detrimental in allowing for the Earth's global systems as well as local ecosystems to draw down carbon from the atmosphere, as well as just to stay healthy and well. Yeah, so I guess we already talked a little bit about some of the crops and things, but yeah, so here's just a few images. The banana yucca is in the bottom right. And I think so some of our work too is in kind of introducing people to what a bioregional diet could look like. And bioregional is a term that basically means a lot of things, but it is a term that kind of locates your geographic area rather than maybe on the boundaries that we're used to, on like a city boundary or a state boundary. It is more so in ecoregions oriented. So our bioregion being both in the southwestern part of the Colorado Plateau, as well as being a sky island in with the mountain. creates really unique climatic conditions that allow us to grow food, certain types of food in certain ways, and that we have lots to learn from and continue to learn from Indigenous folks, both in the past as well as ongoing practices of cultivating that food, and of cultivating, really tending the land in a deeper sense. Yeah, we have a lot of fun with a lot of experimentation. There are so many incredible crop varieties that what you see at the grocery store is like this much, and then the rest is there's just like so many different varieties that are maybe more well adapted to the climatic changes we'll be facing.
Yeah, the watermelon actually up in the left-hand corner is a great example. It's actually a native watermelon that seeds were found about 70 years ago, sealed in a vessel in a cave on the Mogollon Rim, and only recently were they actually propagated, and it turns out that it was a watermelon. And so we grew these last year with incredible success because they are adapted for this area, and it was amazing, and they taste incredible.
Yeah, very drought hardy. So we also compost. Compost is the theme of tonight. We do a little tiny bit of residential pickup for our friends and family mostly, and then we pick up from a few businesses as well, and we run the community compost station outside the Flagstaff CSA and local market on South Beaver. So you can, if the compost bins are full, that means we will definitely provide more bins for that. So definitely throw your food scraps there especially if you live in the neighborhood and you aren't already signed up with Cara. So so composting, I think Cara basically hit everything. Composting is really important for also closing the loop on farms for nutrient flows, I guess. Because a lot of the time in farms, on farms, you'll be importing essentially lots of nutrients from other parts of the country or sometimes other parts of the world. And some of those things are not, sustainably mined or what have you. Just kind of closing those loops on the farm is really important.
And it's really one of the only ways to manage what we're shifting towards, which is a no-till method. So instead of tilling up and tilling under everything every year, you can either grow a cover crop or just leave whatever scraps are from the previous growing season and just put compost on top of that to kind of create a little bit of a layer cake, and whatever's under the compost will continue to decompose as you plant in the new compost, and it just kind of creates a completely renewable seed bed essentially.
Yeah, and that's also like when you till, there's a lot of carbon that's released into the atmosphere. The soil is a huge carbon sink, particularly in temperate climates like ours. And additionally, like part of a no-till system or a low-till system is also relying heavily on cover crops, which I know that Roots also uses to regenerate the soil, to provide some organic matter, as well as to, when you grow plants and you turn them into the soil, they are, breathing, taking up the carbon dioxide that's in the atmosphere. So that's an immense help too. We'd love to, I guess, chat more in the Q&A. These are just, we have our CSA program that you can join if you're interested. We also are going to be at the Flagstaff Community Market this season. And then we have some eggs from our lovely chickens at the Flagstaff CSA and local market as well. So.
Find us on Instagram, shoot us an email. We're always ready to talk about things. So thank you so much for allowing us this space to share.
All right, thank you guys so much, both Caleb and Heather. Also a lot of amazing work going on there. You guys definitely have a lot of variety. I love it. So all of our speakers, thank you so much again. All were so great and informative, truly doing such inspiring work to help combat this climate crisis. So thank you. So I know there's been a few questions in the chat, so we're going to open up the virtual floor to the Q&A session now. So I'm going to go down the list in the chat, and hopefully I can figure out who's it like directed to. So I will try my best. So let me just get to the start. Okay, so we're going to start with Summer White. This one's for you. Sydney asked, how has climate change impacted your growing seasons?
Yeah, so I think, as I've kind of said before, I am a new grower, and I've got 2 growing seasons under my now. But just in Flagstaff, our last frost is generally supposed to be around June 10th. But with climate change, that date's changing, and then, shortening and extending our grow seasons in kind of unpredictable ways. So, making it more necessary for farm to have season extension, like Heather was talking about, those hoop houses and plastic coverings and frost cloth and things of that nature, and it happening really, as I say, unpredictably. So it'll be really warm and great weather one day, and then the next day we'll have to cover everything because we'll get a cold snap and everything might die. That's not cold hardy. So, it just makes this variability. Climate change definitely impacts, what we're able to grow, how long we're able to grow it. And I think, there are farmers that have a lot more experience with, being able to compare growing seasons from 10 years ago compared to now, and who have lived in our region longer. But that's what I can say based on my experience and what I know, in this region, at least, talking about Flagstaff specifically.
Awesome, thank you. Also, another question for you. Carrie asked, can we visit your farm?
Yes, please visit the farm. As I mentioned earlier, it's in down Flagstaff on Birch. You can find our address on our website. And there's not much to see currently, but we will be growing this season. And, it's open for folks to walk through and gander and spend time. We really value our space because it is very centrally located. We want people to interact with, so please do. And we always love hearing feedback from folks, so please reach out as well if you ever go visit.
Cool, yeah, I know I will soon. I will see you soon then. All right, for you again, I guess we're just going to go down in the order they asked them. So this is for you also. Stefan asked, how does farming affect carbon emissions?
Yeah, I want to open this up too to Caleb and her if they want to chime in. And Cara was speaking to this as well, just about, how in our industrial agricultural system, there are so many food miles. So I would say that's really linked to the carbon emissions of farming. And additionally, this is kind of outside of my scope, but, the raising of livestock and, that heavily contributes to methane and greenhouse gases as well. But yeah, just our industrial system is really, really dependent upon, oil and just not it's industrial, so it requires a lot more resources to produce and distribute and consume, all the plastics and whatnot that our food comes in. So there are a lot of, the food system is very, it encompasses a lot of our industry. So, I relate that to farming as well. And I think alternative and small scale is at least trying to alleviate some of that, but it's not all of it at all. And small scale farms still contribute in some ways as well, just in terms of, like Heather was saying, like utilizing plastics. It's really hard to get away from that. So just a few things, but if any of the other panelists want to say anything too, please.
Yeah. So I think one thing that we forgot to mention too in our time is there's a really, really phenomenal resource called Project Drawdown.
I think it
and
was mentioned in the chat.
Yeah, it was put in the chat. And they have a whole section on land use, farming, agriculture, and essentially it's a solutions oriented project, looking or trying to focus on what are ways that we can actually like functionally draw down the carbon in the atmosphere, both on a global scale but also on a local scale. So like composting is on there, food waste reduction is also on there, but also intensification for smallholder farmers is on there. Supporting of indigenous land tenure is on there, because those things are incredibly important to ensuring that the farming that we do is not extractive. Like you said, Summer, I think the industrial method, much like the mess that we are in, the logic that got us into for the climate crisis is one that is extractive. It's a one way. It's not about. It's about like inputs to production and labor, and then outputs, and then there's no kind of return path. So small scale farming, oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes, is about prioritizing that those closed loop systems.
Because often they can afford to, is the thing with the large industrial farms. A lot of the USDA mandates over the past 50 years have been, you have to go big and go monocrop, or you don't get paid, or you can't make any money, which is also a huge part of this, is understanding the capitalist influence in all of this, and how some farmers are really, they don't have a choice to use the kind of extractive methods and synthetic fertilizers and really sucking everything out of the soil. They don't have a choice. And so when you look towards the small and look towards the local, in a sense, in a lot of ways, you're kind of able to extract a lot of the capitalist mindsets from it, which is half the battle already.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. All right. Sorry, Summer, you're kind of on the hot seat still. 2 more questions. So Jim asked, do you till your soil or just plant next to the old plants?
So yeah, no-till is something that really interests me, and I'd like to get there as Refugia was speaking. I know that their goals surround that as well. And what we do right now is, I would say, low-till. So, once a year, we come in with our very small scale market garden. It's a BCS tractor, so it's like a handheld. We are doing tilling, but traditional tilling is going to be over a foot of breaking up the soil structure, and this machine is only about a couple of inches. So it's it is still in a sense and breaking up the soil structure, but not as deep as traditional tilling methods would. So yeah, there's great success of folks with no-till methods, and that is definitely somewhere that we would like to get to, but not currently. Low-till is at least on the path to getting there.
All right. Last question from Carrie. Explain the marketing of being a part of that relationship.
And are we speaking, and Carrie, you can feel free to chime in more. I feel like you submitted this while I was on my little rant there about food systems, but let's see here. Go back to the question.
Thank you. You were talking about how creating a relationship with the entire food system, the growth, the marketing, the consuming, sharing recipes, reusing, and reincorporating into the soil. So like on a smaller scale where we don't sell our crops, but what do you do in your marketing, in relation to your marketing to create relationships?
Yeah, I think, having that direct relationship with our customers. So, growing the food and then being able to provide it to them directly. Okay. I think that has at least helped me and it helps our customers to, be able to see where their food is being grown, who's growing the food. I think that relationship is really important. And helps folks to see, you know, it's a little, the food I'm eating is more than what meets the eye. So that's kind of from a more, you know, coming from the heart response of how I see that. But yeah, just kind of recognizing that there is a whole system and multiple people attached to the production of food, and when it gets to your plate or gets home.
Thank you.
It's
I
a
guess
long path.
I was thinking marketing as she must be using recycled paper for her posters on selling food or something like that. So thank you for explaining the marketing. That makes sense what you're saying. People finding
Sure.
where the food comes from. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Kara.
All right, thank you. Moving on, I lost my spot. So where am I in the chat? Oh, here we go. I think this is for Roots and also Refugia. Are there tips we can get from our native peoples when it comes to growing food in this area? I'm assuming that's for the both of you.
Yeah. Do you wanna
Yeah. I mean, I know there are a lot of really, really cool initiatives actually going on out on Navajo and Hopi nations right now. One of my friends actually runs Hopi Tutsqua Permaculture Institute, which is an institution out on Hopi and Kikotsmovi. They're just incredible. I could sing Lillian and her organization's praises until my dying breath. It's incredible the things they're able to do. And then we also have relationships with Talani Lake Enterprises, which is that's in Loop.
Yeah, it's like Loop
Out in
area.
Loop.
It's in Talani Lake, but
And then Coffee Pot Farms as well. And I would say reach out to them. It's and offer your time and offer you know, labor in exchange for knowledge or things like that. There are some really, really cool things going on in terms of our neighbors out on the indigenous reservations and even here that have been doing some really, especially in regards to climate change in the area. You know, I mean, growing out on the res is not an easy feat to begin with. And the fact that they are able to continually produce beautiful crops and maintain absolutely just inspiring relationships with land is really, really, it's just inspiring. And so I would say reach out to them and learn more about their projects and things that they're doing from them. I don't want to speak for any knowledge that I determine is indigenous or knowledge or things like that. So I would say reach out to them.
Yeah, and I just want to add on, I know NACA here in town is, will have some community garden plots this year and has worked really closely with the Isabel Street Garden and is helping support the community composting bins there. And they're hoping to have a demonstration plot this year, just hosting indigenous foods and crops. So definitely reach out to them as well. They're doing work in town involving indigenous growing methods.
Awesome. Thank you guys. All right. I think the next one is for Cara. Amanda asked, I started a mini coffee. Can compost bin in my apartment? Can that compost be dropped off at the community garden or just the food scraps? Or scraps? Sorry.
Well, I think, Carrie, are you kind of helping run the Isabel Community Gardens one? Are you able to talk to that? Because I know that, and it's been done different ways in the past. I don't know if she can talk to it or not. I think you can bring your post. Yeah, go ahead.
So we are partnering and collaborating with Flagstaff Sustainability, Summer and Dylan. And it's really, really amazing. We're just getting started and we love it. And that's kind of why I'm on this program, to see who else is out there. And we are NACA, Native Americans for Community Action. We're the Lasting Indigenous Family Enrichment Program, where a lot of our indigenous culture and traditions surrounding the plants, our plant relatives, like our language, you know, is becoming extinct. And so that's why I was asking for the watermelon seeds. We're really trying to do a lot of indigenous gardening. And we did our first garden this past year. And going forward, we want to also do medicinal herbs. We'll be doing a lot of activities starting in April. We do have a Facebook page, and it's on the NACA website. And if you just scroll and look for the life program, you can see all the different things we're doing. Otherwise, it's nacainc.org/life. And the composting bin is a great activity that we get to partner with the city on. And I was listening to a city sustainability meeting the other day. It looks like they're getting more funding and wanting more places. Well, Summer could probably talk about that, but and Dylan from over there. But it was really interesting to see that there's more opportunity, definitely. And a lot of the coffee places do donate their grinds to my health educator, who does make her rounds and picks up the buckets like you're talking about. So that's a great idea, being able to provide buckets, because otherwise they don't know what to put it in, but they're plastic. So that got me thinking maybe metal plastics or some sterling silver or something. What would you suggest as far as buckets for composting buckets?
We use the 5-gallon plastic, and I mean, I know that it is plastic, but I don't know of like a 5-gallon aluminum replacement. I mean, I'd be open to it for sure. But I think like the farmers have said, there's like a certain amount of necessary evil, if you want to call it that.
Mm-hmm. And I guess there's one also on the west side, a community garden by the Flag High that also has a composting bin. And those were the first 2 started this year. And hopefully there'll be more. Thank you.
And I just wanted to say, Amanda, if your question is about dropping off coffee grounds at the community composting, that is definitely okay. Please do.
Right, thank you, everybody. Let's see, what is next? Sorry, I lost my spot again. This one's for Refugia Gardens. Sydney asked, how has climate change impacted your guys' growing seasons?
A lot. Short answer.
Yeah, I mean, the last 2 years of a very lackluster monsoon is definitely the harbinger. I mean, and there's a lot of research out there too that you know, there are some conclusions that we might actually be seeing more precipitation, but less so in the form of snow and more so in the form of rain.
And not steady rain.
Yeah.
Like intense destructive storms.
Mm-hmm. So I think you know, with the climate crisis, what is the difficult thing as farmers to plan for is immense variability. So when you have some variation, when you have things that are expected, like frost dates, you know, obviously in Flagstaff, because we're in a high mountain desert, there's always some kind of variation in that. But especially when it affects the rain, I think that's when it gets really terrifying, because that affects not only the plant's ability to grow, but also the ecosystem's ability to regenerate. It affects how we are affected by fire. We're right on the very, very precipice of where the Schultz fire happened back in 2010. And we were evacuated. And like the museum fire a few years ago, like there's any number of things that affect an entire ecosystem, an entire watershed that transform whether or not you can even return to land or return to a place.
I think water is the thing we worry about most in terms of its sustainability. I mean, we can't tap the aquifer forever. It weighs a lot on us. What changes are coming, what changes we're already seeing. I mean, I've lived in Flagstaff my entire life. I've been born and raised here, and the changes that have been happening even over the past 5 years are heartbreaking in a lot of ways. To know that this place is never going to be what it used to be. But it is comforting to still be able to, at least for now, raise crops in the way that we are doing and continuing to be flexible and just really listening to the land and the environment and really just trying to respond in whatever way we can.
Awesome, thank you. This is another question for you guys. What are some of your successful cover crops?
Oh boy, success!
We've tried a number of things. We actually have we did some clover, but we did it a little too late last year. So it's been dormant for a long while.
Yeah.
But we have that's a mammoth red clover. It does really, really well. So cover crops, there's like a number of things that you can do with cover crops, which is and Summer, also chime in whenever you want. Yeah, so there's a number, there are some cover crops that are really good for, basically being a green manure. So you cut the cover crop basically grows in the area, and then when you cut it down, it creates a lot of organic matter that can go back into the soil. And then there are some, so that's like rye.
Yeah.
We've also grown a winter rye
And
as well.
It keeps coming back.
Yeah. And then there are others that in the legume family, like clover, that actually fix nitrogen into the soil. So basically it takes nitrogen that's in the atmosphere or in the area, and it transforms it into a bioavailable nutrient in the soil. And there's only really crops in the legume family are able to do that. So clovers and
beans,
things like that. They do that very well, and they pair with an amalgam of phenomenal fungi, who are the underrated creators of the soil and of the farm.
Do fungi count as a cover crop? Because
yeah.
mycelium
is
incredible for soil health and nutrient availability and water retention. It's incredible.
All right, there's kind of a additional question for that. Have you sold, or is it possible to sell rye and such to local breweries?
Ooh,
Not in the quantities that they'd need, but I think Summer wanted to say something.
Did you want to say something?
I was just going to add on that I've had a lot of success with winter rye as well. And another cover crop that's fun is root vegetables like radishes and turnips to break up the soil and get those soil aggregates a little bit broken up, which is really, really great depending on your soil type. So that was something that we experimented a little bit with this year. Fun fact. That's all I had.
Yeah, so on the grain, we're actually I think we have a huge amount of turnip seed that we actually need to use up. So we might be doing that this season. But on the grain.
With the space that we have and the amount of crops we would need to provide to a local brewery, I don't think it would be in the quantity that would be. I mean, it would be a negligible quantity to most of them. And I know for brewing there are specific varieties of rye and specific varieties of grains that they're more looking for. So it's definitely something that we could pursue if we were really interested in really trying to market our specific cover crop. But in terms of financial viability right now, it's not something that we could really pursue.
Yeah, and I think too, it's the with it's kind of what we've also taken in addition to some regenerative practices is also permaculture methods, and coming lots from Heather and Heather's training. And that, we evaluate permaculture is a slew of things as well, but basically it's an attention to kind of all the things that work in a space, be it a farm, be it a home, be it a community. So we I think in our our listening to the land and our listening to the ecosystem and to the area that we are in and the patch of land that we are on, um, you know, that is not the right thing for that place.
Yeah.
It would not be the right thing, I think, to grow large, you know, scale rye on or grains or anything like that
Yeah.
in the quantities that a brewery would need. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Thank you guys. I see one more. This one's for Cara. Do you have any recommendations or advice for other communities that want to start a community composting program?
Sure, and I typed to her directly in the chat. Mine's not really community composting in that it's like a residential paid pickup program. I think, Caleb, you're kind of doing that with the bin outside the CSA, right? And then Carrie is definitely doing that with Naka and the community gardens. So if either of you guys want to speak to the community composting model, maybe.
And Cara, I think too, you know, we work in like Cottonwood, so I use the word community composting, but I know there's people in communities that might want to start doing what you're doing. So I think I
okay.
did want to ask you that question. I just didn't word it in the proper terms.
Oh, okay. No worries. And there also is another group out of Sedona that is actually doing it up here in Flagstaff too. And I'd say they're probably doing it on a larger scale than I am. So is the question just kind of like more how to get started, or how does it work, or what are you wondering about?
Yeah, and I think just kind of, is it working out for you? Do you have advice for anyone that maybe wants to try kind of doing the same thing? Would be kind of a general question.
I would say yes, it is working out. But I think you have to be a little bit compost crazy in the first place to even start and want to do it. I definitely have friends of mine that are like, why are you still doing that? Like, why are you still trying to do that? I do have a different job. I work at NAU. That's like my day job, I guess you could say. And I haven't gotten to a place where I can do my compost collection as like a full-time thing, but people across the United States and across the world definitely are doing that. There are very large operations that have like large machinery, and I mean, it exists on any scale you want to take it to. So yeah, I would say yes, it is working out. I think it's very rewarding. I think it's very satisfying to take something that was going to be trash and was going to be a problem and creating greenhouse gases and yank it back out of that system and put it into the other stream that's like, let's create something wonderful and beautiful that then can go onto garden beds and create something else wonderful and beautiful. I think it's the more soul satisfying element is what keeps me doing it. Not really the economics. I mean, we're making enough economically to keep doing it. And I do have an employee, Anthony, who helps me with the pickups, and I get to pay him a living wage. It's not a full-time job, obviously, but I think that's really important that, you know, you don't do something that's asking someone to work for something that's not sustainable. So if you're gonna do sustainable work, you also have to pay sustainable wages. I think that's all part of it. So I would encourage anybody that's interested in getting involved to do it. It's just, yeah, it's maybe like farming in that there's always problems to solve. There's always things that change, people move, things, machines break down, systems have to be created and recreated. And some people think that's like fun to do and some don't. Like, do you want to continually solve problems? Maybe it's for you. And if not, maybe not. Maybe you can just support the people that are doing it.
Thank you. The other Carrie's muted, but one night I got all crazy and I was like, I'm starting this. I live in Munns Park, and I think you guys go to like Kachina, but no one comes to Munns Park. And I was like, I'm just going to do it myself. I'm going to fill up my backyard. So thank you for sharing that.
All right, I think I got all the ones from the chat. If anyone has any last minute ones they want to ask right now, go for it.
I've got a question. So I thought the thing with the watermelon and the seeds that you guys found, that's fantastic. For indigenous farmers around the world, they develop their seed type that's locally adapted. For the Hopi farmers, that's a huge thing. So I would recommend that you protect it from being cross-pollinated with other watermelons, right? Because you got something unique, a real heirloom crop, if you will. But then, as you guys develop a farming community, save the seeds that do best here in Flagstaff. Have seed schools once a month like they do in Zimbabwe, and get together and say, oh yeah, this one grew the best right next to this one, or this one grew in the driest patch of my field the best, and this one in the wettest patch. All those kinds of things make a difference. And so start to figure out ways to store your seeds, exchange your seeds, develop your seeds. It's beautiful with the watermelon.
Thank you. We are working on developing a big seed library and donating. There is a seed library that just opened with the East Flag Community Library as well, and so we will also be making a big donation there. I do want to make the distinction: we didn't find the seed. The seed was found like 50 or 70 years ago by Art Combe, who was a botanist, biologist,
avid seed collector from Utah.
Mm-hmm. He was on a school trip, and they saw the cave, and he found it in there and started cultivating it himself. And now the seeds are actually available through Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds. Mm-hmm. Although, we did hear that the watermelon used to have a crookneck, and that was unfortunately bred out. And we want to bring the crookneck back, so we are selecting seeds for the crookneck trait to have a crookneck watermelon in the area.
Cool.
Awesome, thank you. Anyone else have any last minute questions? I am not seeing anybody, so I guess we'll just.
I think Carrie's raising.
Oh, sorry.
There you go. Thank you. I just put it in the chat, but as we're going around trying to get community members in the area, in my agency, anybody I could talk to about composting bins available at the Isabel Garden, I'm finding that they don't have any clue about composting. They don't have any idea of the things that can go in the bins. But once you begin to share with them, and I'm still learning, collecting more information, and I just gained more information tonight that we can share. And I asked Cara if she could come and present to our program participants. Them taking it to heart, them understanding within their mind, it just brings more and more people to the composting bins, more and more willing to put stuff in a bucket for us to come by and pick up. I think that, that would be a good, and we did put a composting, Sean Ray created a composting video about composting, and I think it's on our webpage, and hopefully more and more people will learn about it. So yeah, I'll find out for sure. I'll have Sean Ray put it on our webpage if it isn't there. But education is knowledge, and knowledge is more people helping us to compost. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carrie. All right, let me just check real quick. All right, I think we'll just wrap it up right now. So thank you again for everyone joining us. Thank you to our speakers and panelists, Summer, Cara, Caleb, and Heather, and Carrie. Thank you. So NASCA has a lot of wonderful upcoming events, and we'll put a link in the chat. And as part of the Food and Health Awareness Campaign, our next event is going to be on March 31st, and that's going to be a woman-led COVID-19 and climate change in Indigenous communities. So we'll have Nikki Cooley and Dr. Karen Durrett Snyder presenting there. Super exciting. So yeah, we'll just follow up with an email with more information on our panelists and how to get involved and all the links that you've heard about tonight. So yeah, I think that concludes this for today. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much,
everyone.
Thanks, everyone. It was great being here.